This is your spiritual connection, ourplanetlife.org, broadcasting from Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas.
Good morning and welcome to the Business Hour on ourplanetlife.org, brought to you by Webb Chapel Church of Christ. My name is Art Garcia, your host for the Business Hour, and this morning we do have Randy Schackmann of the Shakman Philanthropy. Randy, good morning. How are you?
Good, Art. Thank you. I'm doing well, and thank you for having me.
Great to have you on our business on the Business Hour. The name of your company, what is philanthropy?
Philanthropy is literally the idea of caring for humanity, and it's come to mean in our society charitable giving to support causes that are important to you.
What exactly does your company do? I mean,
there are a couple of things that we do. The main thing that we provide is consulting support to nonprofit organizations, particularly those who are making a difference in our society. That's kind of that whole idea of the idea of philanthropy. We provide support with management consulting, especially in the area of fundraising. So we're helping them to generate the resources to fulfill their mission. The other thing that we do is we will actually work with companies or organizations with their individual donors. So we might reach out to you. If you're a supporter of an organization, we might reach out and help you to do charitable estate planning or to evaluate how to give and to make your giving as effective as possible on behalf of your organization.
I see. So if anybody inherits an estate, they can come to you and say, hey, I've got all this merchandise or whatever they have, and you can kind of lead them.
We can help them to decide what might be the best way to give. Are there tax incentives that will help them to make their giving a little more effective? Most often, we actually are providing support to the organization, reaching out to their existing donors as opposed to individuals coming to us. But we do some of that as well, and we've had folks come to us and say, can you help us determine who would be a good charity to give to?
Where is your office located?
Well, that's a good question. We actually are located in my home. It's really a virtual office because our staff is located in 6 different states. We serve clients all over the country. And 3 years ago, when we started the company, I've been involved in the business for a lot of years, but when we began our own consulting firm, we made a strategic decision not to go out and rent a building or to buy a building, and we hoped that we would be able to have better cost for nonprofits if they didn't have to help pay our rent. And so our virtual office, and the staff is all over the country, and I walk down the hall to my office if I'm going there in the mornings.
So you don't have any overhead expenses.
I guess everybody has a little bit of overhead, but our overhead is extremely low. We also like to think of it that we're doing something important. You know, we call ourselves a green office. We did some calculations, and with the staff, the 7 of us, we averaged what we usually commuted to a downtown office at our various locations, and we discovered that we saved probably about the equivalent of a full staff person for almost a month in terms of people not having to commute and not having that lost time. So it's almost like having an extra person on staff just because we're not doing that, because when we get started in the morning, we're there. And we think we're saving a lot in gas and all those other things too.
Exactly. How long have you been in business?
My company's been in business for just a little over 3 years. I've been doing this work for about 25 years and have worked with nonprofits ever since I got out of college, which is getting to be longer ago than I like to remember. But so we've been serving as Shakman Philanthropy for 3 years. It's amazing to me if you are a food bank in Minneapolis, you have a tendency to network with other similar kinds of organizations, And next thing you know, I'll be getting an inquiry phone call from a food bank in Iowa, and it's that type of thing. And so a lot of it is networking. We do a little bit of marketing within select groups, but for the most part, it's word of mouth. We work some trade shows and things like that.
Wow. Who are your clients? Or
they are everybody from the very youngest and startup nonprofits, and we actually can help organizations to go through the process of becoming a licensed 501c3 charity. That means that they're able to receive donations and the donors get tax deductions for it. And then we've worked with folks all the way up through some of the very largest. I've been the national trainer for the American Cancer Society for their fundraising new hires. We've done work for AARP Foundation, for a lot of food banks and a lot of folks. We love working, and most of our clients are people who are about caring locally in communities, food banks, rescue missions, homeless shelters, things like that.
We were talking earlier about how to give to a charity. Say if you inherited, or say you won the lottery and you want to give so much money to different ones, but you were telling me that it's very important to give to the charity that's in your heart.
Very much so. In fact, if you win the lottery, I'll be calling you to see if you will adopt me. but yeah, we always say to people, if you want to make your giving most effective, there are three things that I like to suggest, and three that I try to personally practice. And the first is, we always tell people to really let your heart lead, because we have various passions, and find those things that mean the most to you and get involved with those things. There are so many good causes. They say that in America today there is somewhere between 1.2 and 1.3 million charities on any given day. Probably at least 700,000 or 800,000 of those are organizations that are reaching out and asking for donations. And so we say find those folks that just really touch your heart, and then find those places where you want to make a difference. And the second thing that we would do then is we would suggest that in addition to finding that passion is to focus your giving. We like to say make a bigger splash in a smaller pond. You can give $5 to 20 different organizations, and they would appreciate the $5, but the reality is if you give $100 to that place where your passion lies, they're going to be able to accomplish a lot more with that.
Sounds reasonable to me. It also makes sense.
It really does. And the final thing that we tell people is to keep your giving close to home. Because as you think about reaching out to organizations, there's an old adage or an old saying in our business that's called the good giving formula, and it says more knowledge and more involvement equals better giving. The more you know about an organization, you're confident that your donations are being used well. The more involved you are with an organization, the more you understand how they're really reaching the community. I've often told people I've worked for a lot of food banks, and I've been at the national organization in Chicago, but I've never given to a food bank that wasn't within 25 miles of my house, because I want my dollars to help people that are hungry and needy right here in my community.
It makes sense also, like if you were to give to a food bank, give to one that's local, where it would help the local community.
A food bank in Portland, Oregon, where I was born and raised, they're doing a lot of good work, but if there are people in our area that need help, why not help the people here that I see every day?
Exactly. What makes Shakman Philanthropy better, or their services? Because I know there's other companies out there that are doing the same as you do. Why would somebody go to you and ask you, hey, Randy, can you help me do this?
Yeah, well, there are probably several answers to that. There are a number of organizations in the country that help provide fundraising counsel. We have a particular specialty of helping what we call client side fundraising. These are usually organizations that they're not so large that they have very extensive fundraising departments, and they're trying to get by on and make their dollars go a little farther. And so rather than go out and hire a full-time staff person to manage all of their giving processes, they'll reach out to someone like my firm, and we will then become their fundraising department, if you will. And so they can do that for a lot less than hiring a full-time staff person. So we specialize there. We have a lot of specialty in that plan giving or the estate planning processes as well. So it's kind of, you look, and it's just like, I think I use the illustration of, a grocery store. You say, I go to this store because they have the kind of produce I like and I need, as opposed to another store, which is a good store, but they don't have exactly the right fit. And so that's how you look for a fundraising firm.
If anybody wants to get a hold of Shakman Philanthropy, how would they go about this phone number or website?
Yeah, absolutely. They can look us up. You have to spell the name right because it's got a couple of extra C's and N's in it, but we are shakmanps.com. So you can go to our website, shakmanps.com, and you can call me at 214-538-3898, and that'll ring there in the office, and we'll be glad to talk to you.
Are you always, or do you look for people to volunteer to help out with your organization, or how does that work?
We can connect people to organizations, to nonprofits, but our particular business, there is expertise required, so we have our own staff. Yeah.
That's great, Randy. I'm glad you came by today to the Business Hour to talk about giving, which is great to help the community, and it also will help other people get an idea of what you do, and if they're interested, they can go ahead and contact you.
Great. Well, I appreciate you having me here. Let me toss one final tip out there for everybody. I often get asked the question, how much of my dollar, when I give a dollar, goes to helping the cause that I'm supporting? And that's always a good question. That's a good question to ask.
Exactly.
Anybody that tells you 100% of your gift goes to the cause, let the hair on the back of your neck stand up just a little bit, because it costs money to raise money. And so what you're looking for, and that's why we want to stay close to home with giving, you're looking for an organization who is prudent with funds and does things well. The Wise Give Alliance, which is a consortium group of the National Better Business Bureau and the U.S. Charities, Government Charities Review, and so there are several things that get into that. They say that you should never give to an organization that doesn't have at least a maximum of 35% used for fundraising. Most organizations, a lot of food banks, people that I work for, they actually it'll cost somewhere between about 5 to 15% to run their operations. And so when you give $1, 85 or 90 cents is actually providing services. It's not always the case. There are some organizations out there that don't do as well, and I encountered somebody the other day that I was asked about, and we researched them, and they were using a lot of telemarketing and some other methods, and 90 cents of every dollar it was donated was being paid to organizations to do the fundraising. That's not good. So find organizations that have very small margins. Don't give to organizations that are spending more than 35% on their administrative and fundraising costs.
That sounds like a good idea to look out for. So be sure. How would anybody go out and check out an organization?
That's one of the things that sometimes people call me about.
Oh.
And they will say,
there you go.
How can we find this out? Especially if someone is looking at making a substantial gift to an organization, they may reach out to our firm and say, help us do a background check. Help us know that these are the people we think they are. There are some other things you can do. You can always go online and go to the organization's website. See if they have financial accountability information right out there for you to look at. If they don't, that raises a red flag. Most great charities do. They'll have things. And there is a form called the IRS 990. It's the tax return for a nonprofit organization. And that, by law, is a public document. and most organizations will publish it online. There are some other places that will, Charity Navigator and some other websites that will actually rate organizations and can help you do some research. But go look at their 990, look at their tax return and see. It'll tell you how much they spend on salaries, how much they spend on program costs, and you can get a good idea. It'll tell you right up front how much they spend on fundraising.
Well, that's great information, Randy, and it's about time to conclude the business hour for this morning, and we thank you, Shakman Philanthropy, for coming by the studio to talk to us.
Art, thank you so much, and appreciate what you do, and we wish everybody a great day and a great week.
Have a great day, and don't forget ourplanetlive.org, the business hour live every Thursday, 7:30.
Broadcasting from Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas.
8:30. Thank you.